So, a question that I get asked quite a lot is, can you build muscle and lose fat at the same time? And the short answer is yes, you can. But not everyone can do it. And it's going to totally depend on what stage of the process that you're actually at. So by the end of this video, I'm going to let you know whether or not you're in the position that you can build muscle and lose fat at the same time, or if you're wasting your time and you should be focusing on something else. So as with everything in the fitness industry, people tend to fall into either extreme. They either seem to be the people that say, oh, you can't build muscle during a deficit, so you need to either be in the deficit or you need to be in a surplus, and that's it. Pick a direction and stick with it. There is some truth to that, but also there's something wrong in that statement too, because again, context applies and it depends where exactly you're starting from. And there's also people out there who believe that you can build muscle and lose fat at the same time forever. They live in some sort of fantasy land where, yeah, that just keeps happening, and in reality, it doesn't. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So both camps are wrong, and when you're watching videos online, people will be putting these views out there and they'll be going for the extreme side of things because that's what drives views. There's not a lot of people out there that are telling you the truth, that are telling you exactly what you need to hear in your situation. But that's what we're going to look at in this video. We're going to talk about who this applies to and who it doesn't apply to. Who's going to be able to actually build muscle and lose fat at the same time, and who isn't. And before you start to wonder, well, why should I listen to this guy? Well, I've been training for almost 15 years now. I've done the big bulks, I've done the lean bulks, I've been shredded many a times. I've been through it all. And if there's something out there that I haven't tried, well, I'd be very surprised, because I've been trying it all to get myself the best physique possible over the last 15 years. I've wasted a lot of time on things that don't work, and that's why I make these videos, so that you can skip the bullshit and get to a stage where you've got a bigger and better physique than me and less time than it took me to get here. So using myself as an example, I'm in a position right now where the first camp really does apply to me. Okay, I've been training for 15 years, and at this point, I really do just need to pick a direction and go for it. Why? Because ultimately, you cannot prioritize building muscle when you're in a calorie deficit, just like you can't prioritize losing body fat when you're in a calorie surplus. Okay. Now, there are situations where this happens. There's been studies with high protein intake, for example, where, and I might be misquoting this, but I'm pretty sure the people within the study had 4.4 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, right? And even though they were in a calorie surplus, they still lost body fat, okay? Maybe not body weight, but body fat, okay, which is an important distinction. But when it comes to the realities of it, if you're focusing on losing body fat, you're going to want to be in a deficit. If you're focusing on building muscle, you're going to want to be in a surplus, okay? And it's going to be hard to focus on both of them at the same time. And that's not just my opinion, that's just the realities of it. However, when you're training hard and you're in a deficit, if that signal is strong enough, if you are creating a big enough stimulus, not only will your body retain muscle, but there is a slight chance that you could build some muscle. And again, that's going to depend on the severity of the deficit. Because if you're just in a slight deficit, well, that's more likely to happen than if you're in a large calorie deficit, if you're really lean and you're really pushing yourself. Like, let's say, for example, the last few weeks before a photo shoot or before a bodybuilding show, there's no chance you're going to be building muscle there. Like, the reality of it is your body is depleted, your body, your muscles will be flat, and there's nothing left in the tank to help fuel that. But again, at the start of a calorie deficit, I do believe that if you're training hard enough, you can still build a little bit of muscle. It won't be a lot, but a little bit. And you hear it a lot from bodybuilders, like, I'm going to grow into the show and things like that. Like, as I say, yeah, maybe at the very start of a prep, maybe at the very start of a dieting phase when things aren't too tough. But as you get closer and closer to it, the chances are you're more likely to be losing muscle rather than gaining muscle. So let's look at who this actually works for. And the first group of people that I'm going to mention are people who are brand new to lifting. If you've just started lifting or you're just about to start lifting, then you're going to get those newbie gains. That is a thing that totally exists. Like, you know, when you start off lifting in the first place, no matter what you do, the minute you touch a weight, you're going to start building muscle, okay? Because it's a new stimulus. It's something the body hasn't been exposed to before. So whether you're in a calorie deficit or whether you're in a calorie surplus, at the start, it really doesn't matter. Just go in, start lifting, start getting stronger, and you will build muscle. And if your diet's right, then you're going to lose fat at the same time. If you're creating a deficit, you're going to lose fat at the same time. Even if you ate around maintenance, you would still lose fat at the same time. Your body would like recomp at the start of a lifting phase. So again, if I get someone in as a client who's a new lifter, a lot of the time I'll do what's called a recomp phase or a priming phase or whatever you want to call it. And I'll just run like maintenance calories, get their protein up to a good point, which would be 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight. And then we'll just sit at that and make sure we progress in the gym over the first 6 to 8 weeks. And what tends to happen is they lose fat and they gain muscle at the same time. And the second group of people is going to be people who have returned to lifting after taking a prolonged period of time off the gym. So obviously when you stop training, you are going to start losing muscle slowly over time, okay? But when you come back to training, muscle memory is a thing. It really is. And the same principles pretty much apply to this group as they do to the newbies. Like basically it is like being a newbie again. You get that kind of fresh start again, the muscle all starts coming back. But the difference being that this time is you're just gaining back the muscle and the strength that you lost compared to adding new muscle. But you might find that you gain muscle as you lose body fat. And again, that's not a bad thing, but what it might do, which might dishearten you a little bit, is it might mess with the scales a little bit. Because if you gain, 5 pounds of muscle and you lose 10 pounds of fat, well, that's only 5 pounds down the scales. It might not look as impressive, but it's still happening. So those are the groups who can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. But what about the people who can't? Well, there's people like me. People who've been training for a long time, we're more kind of advanced trainees, we've been doing it, 5, 10, 15 years, and we're doing it naturally. Again, we're not talking about people using any extracurriculars here. We're talking about people who are doing this naturally, okay? When you get to this stage, you just need to dedicate certain periods of time to gaining muscle and dedicate certain periods of time to losing body fat, because the chances of you doing both at the same time are so slim that it's pointless even trying. And when I look back over my progress over the last 10, 11 years, which I say 10, 11 years because that's what I've got a record of, but I've spent 79 months dedicated to building muscle. 79 months, that's a lot, and about 40 months in a calorie deficit. We have some in between there where we've kind of covered it as maintenance, but yeah, that's a lot of time building muscle. And again, I wouldn't say I'm that big. Maybe for my frame, yeah, I've built a decent amount of muscle, but I'm not that big for someone who spent 79 months gaining muscle. So it's something to be considered. Once you get to this stage, and once you've been training for a while, you need to dedicate the time to build muscle, much more than you do to losing body fat, because you can shift a lot of body fat in kind of 10, 12 weeks, but you can't gain much muscle in 10 to 12 weeks. You're going to have to spend, in my opinion, if you're in a gaining phase, you need to spend at least 6 months there to make it worthwhile. And guys, if you're one of those people that are in a calorie deficit at the minute, one of the hardest things about being in a calorie deficit is basically feeling full, because you get hungry, your energy levels get low. When you're pushing yourself, that tends to be what happens. So I've made a free high volume meal plan that you can download to help you lose fat without being, I want to say without being hungry, but the reality is you're going to be hungry, but mitigating that hunger as much as possible, okay, to make it as easy on you as possible. So what to do, head over to the link in my description and then basically find the meal plan that suits the amount of calories you're on the best and stick to that, and I guarantee you that it'll at least help the hunger subside a little bit and it'll make it a little bit easier on you. Now, for the people that it applies to, I'm going to tell you how you can lose fat and build muscle at the same time. So if you're a newbie or if you're just getting back to training, then you need to listen up. Now, here's exactly what I would do. I would set your calories round about maintenance, okay? You can use a calorie calculator online and basically use that as a place to start. Now, it might not be that accurate, but what you need to do is you need to run it for the first kind of week or two and just see what changes are happening in your body, because ultimately there's no easy way to predict what your maintenance calories are. You just got to try it and see. You just got to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, okay? So sit around maintenance or even just under maintenance, right? If you want to lose more fat, obviously just under maintenance would be a better place to go. And then this is a position where you're going to recomp the best. You're going to build that muscle and lose fat at the same time, okay? Now, your protein needs to be right too. So I talked about earlier having 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight, okay? So that's where we want to set our protein. That's a nice easy one. And most of that wants to come from complete protein sources. So that's things like, meat, eggs, dairy. We don't want those sources to become from things like bread. Yeah, you're going to get those incomplete sources that are going to come, but we want the majority of the protein to come from complete protein, okay? Because that's what's going to help you build the most muscle. And then when it comes to training, you need to be sticking to the same program for at least, I would say, 12 weeks, right? So write yourself up a program, and then from there, what to do is follow it week by week and write down what you're getting in terms of lifts each week. Okay, so let's just say bench press, 3 sets of 60 for 10. Okay, you want to progress that week on week. Okay, so if you're getting your 3 sets of 60 for 10, go try 65 next time. See how many reps you get of that. Maybe you only get 7, right? And then maybe the next week you get 8 at 65, then you get 9, and so on and so forth. If you're not progressing your training, then it's all useless, okay? It's not, ultimately you're going to get a little bit of muscle gain, a little bit of fat loss, but you're not going to get that much of a recomp, okay? Because if your training is not progressing, then you're not building as much muscle as what you could. And then in terms of a timeline, I would run this for anywhere between 12 to 16 weeks, the whole thing, right? The maintenance calories, that amount of protein, and I just said 12 weeks at least for the training, but I would run the whole block, this kind of recomp block, for like 12 to 16 weeks, because I've seen it time and time again where people continuously gain muscle and lose fat at the same time for round about that amount of time, okay? And again, we should be double checking that it's actually working. We can do this by, taking daily weigh-ins to see what your weight's doing, but again, as I say, you might find you gain a pound of fat, lose a pound of fat and gain a pound of muscle, and your weight stays the same. So we got to be taking progress pictures. You could be taking measurements as well, and you could be using those measurements to figure out your body fat percentage using something like the natal body fat percentage, okay? So again, that might not be the most accurate way of doing it, but it'll tell you whether it's going up or down, and you can get a rough guesstimate of your lean body mass. Then we can see if we're building muscle. So again, having the data there and having a few different ways of looking at it is going to be really, really important. If you go into this expecting to see the scales moving all the time and expecting, fast fat loss, it's probably not going to happen, okay? Like, in reality, this is a point where you're taking advantage of doing both at the same time. So neither of them are going to happen that fast. They are happening fast compared to someone like me. Like, again, if I go on a bulk for a year and I gain a kilo of muscle, then I'm buzzing. That's a really big result. But for you guys who are either just at the beginning of your journey, or if you're just coming back to the gym, you could easily do that within that 12 to 16 week period. And a kilo of muscle makes a big difference to your physique. And if you're someone who's a bit more advanced and you're still watching this and you're thinking, well, why am I not gaining muscle? It's probably because one of 3 things. Either you're not training hard enough and you're not progressing your training, you just got a bit comfortable with it. Number 2, potentially your diet's just not in the right place. You're not eating enough protein, you're not eating enough calories, you're not eating them consistently, you're not hitting your macros consistently. Or 3, you're just not giving it enough time. It's going to take a long time for us more advanced trainees to build muscle than it will for people who are at the start of their journey. That is just a fact, okay? If you're not dedicating at least 6 months to your gaining phase and you're not eating consistently, training with progressive overload consistently, then guess what? You can't expect anything in return, okay? So we have to dedicate the time and we have to be doing things consistently throughout that time. So can you build muscle and lose fat at the same time? The answer is yes, but can everyone do it? The answer to that is no. If you're a beginner or if you're just getting back to training, then yeah, you're in a position where you can do this. But if you're a more advanced trainee like myself, then you're going to have to dedicate periods of time to cutting and periods of time to bulking. So if you're a beginner, follow the instructions, follow what I just talked about, or if you're just returning to training, follow what I've just talked about. And if you're a more advanced trainee, just pick a direction and go with it and stick with it for long enough to make it work. I think the biggest thing that a lot of people struggle with is the patience in a gaining phase, and then obviously the hunger when it comes into a dieting phase. A lot of people cut it short when it comes to a dieting phase because they're hungry. And again, if you're struggling with that, make sure you go download one of my free high volume meal plans. The link is in the description.